Palestine, this isn't just a problem today, but for the last 3,000 years, people have fought to control this land. 3,300 years ago, God commanded Moses to free the Israelites, the Jewish people, from slavery in Egypt. It was very hard, but the Pharaoh finally let them go. Moses then led the Israelites to Palestine and told them to attack. But the Israelites, Al-Sicini, said, you and God go fight. We're not going to fight. Because of this, God punished them by making them wander in the desert for 40 years. There, God gave Moses the Torah. In the first book of the Torah, Genesis, it clearly says that God gave this land, Palestine, to Abraham's descendants. So all the fighting today is because the Jewish people say that this verse in the Torah means Jerusalem and Palestine belong only to them, the Israelites, because they are Abraham's descendants through his son Isaac. And that makes sense. They think they should have it. But the Torah says the land is for Abraham's descendants, not just Isaac's descendants. Abraham had two sons, Isaac and Ishmael. Isaac was the father of the Israelites, but Ishmael is considered the father of the Arabs. And it's not just us saying this, even Jewish people agree. So, according to their own book, the Torah, Palestine isn't just for Isaac's descendants, but also for Ishmael's descendants, the Arabs. After 40 years in the desert with Moses, the Israelites finally conquered Palestine, led by Joshua. But soon after, they lost control of the city again. For the next 300 years, the Israelites couldn't get it back. Finally, 300 years later, led by David, they reconquered Jerusalem. David's son, Solomon, built the first temple there, a place to worship God. After Solomon, the Jewish people ruled Palestine and Jerusalem for 400 years. But then Babylon in Iraq became a very powerful empire. King Nebuchadnezzar attacked Palestine to expand his empire and destroyed Jerusalem. He killed thousands of Jewish people and destroyed Solomon's temple. The surviving Jewish people were taken as slaves to Babylon in Iraq. For 70 years they were enslaved. 70 years later, Cyrus the Great, a noble king of Persia, attacked Iraq. Cyrus conquered Babylon and sent the Jewish people back to Palestine. He even gave them money to rebuild Solomon's temple. The Jewish people ruled Palestine for another 400 years. Then the Roman Empire attacked and forced all the Jewish people out. They stayed away for 600 years. The Roman Empire was incredibly cruel to the Israelites. The Jewish people fought back, but the Romans killed thousands of them. It got so bad that Jewish people hid in caves. The Romans destroyed the temple that Solomon and then Cyrus had rebuilt. That temple has never been rebuilt. The Roman Empire ruled Palestine and Jerusalem for 600 years. Then they made a big mistake. They tried to stop the new religion, Islam, which was spreading quickly in Arabia. But Islam and the Caliphate spread so fast that in just a few years, they conquered both the Roman and Persian empires. Umar became the most powerful ruler in the world, with an empire even bigger than Alexander the Great's. The Muslims, after defeating the Romans, arrived at the gates of Jerusalem. The Prophet Muhammad had said that Muslims would one day conquer Jerusalem. The Muslims had two choices: destroy Jerusalem like previous rulers or surround it and wait. After 6 months, the governor of Jerusalem, Sophronius, said he would surrender only if Umar, the Muslim leader, came to meet him. Khalid ibn al-Walid thought, why bother Umar, the leader of the Muslims? So he went to meet Sophronius disguised as Umar because they looked alike and were both very tall, almost 7 feet. But someone who had met Umar before said, "This isn't Umar." So Khalid ibn al-Walid had to bring Umar, the most powerful ruler in the world, to Jerusalem. Sophronius dressed in fancy gold and silver, expecting to meet a powerful king. But he and everyone in Jerusalem were surprised. Umar's servant rode the camel, while Umar walked wearing simple clothes. The people of Jerusalem were shocked. Every time a new ruler conquered Jerusalem, they destroyed the city and killed many people. But here was the most powerful ruler of all, arriving without an army and in simple clothes. This had never happened before. Umar gave freedom to all religions. Sophronius handed over Jerusalem without any fighting. He asked Umar to ban Jewish people from Jerusalem, but Umar refused and allowed them to live there. For the first time, Jerusalem was controlled by Abraham's descendants through his son Ishmael. For about 350 years, Muslims, Christians, and Jewish people lived together peacefully in Jerusalem. Then, Christians from all over Europe formed an army and attacked Jerusalem. The Muslims were fighting amongst themselves. The Crusaders took advantage of this and easily conquered Jerusalem. They were incredibly cruel to Muslims and Jewish people, killing thousands and destroying mosques and synagogues. History tells us that the Crusaders filled the streets of Jerusalem with blood and even turned the Al-Aqsa Mosque into a palace. Jewish women and children hid in synagogues, but the Crusaders set the buildings on fire, burning them alive. We're not making this up. This is real history, even acknowledged by Europeans. The Crusaders ruled Jerusalem for about 90 years. "90 years later, Saladin, a great Muslim ruler, gathered an army from across the Muslim world and took Jerusalem back from the Christians. The Christians thought Saladin would take revenge for the Muslims who had been killed. But like Umar, Saladin forgave the Christians. The Christians were surprised and said, "When we conquered Jerusalem, we killed every Muslim." Saladin replied, "I am not them." He gave freedom to all religions again. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, which had been turned into a palace, became a mosque again, and the first prayer was held there. Every time a ruler conquered Jerusalem, there was bloodshed, except when the Muslims conquered it. They always brought peace. After Saladin, all three religions lived peacefully in Jerusalem for 800 years. 800 years, and then 100 years ago, Jerusalem was ruled by the Ottoman Empire. After World War I, Arabs, with help from the British, ended the Ottoman Empire. They didn't want to be ruled by the Turkish people. Because of this nationalism, Palestine was no longer controlled by Muslims. But before this, the British and the Jewish people made a deal. If the British got control of the land, they would create a Jewish state there. This happened because Jewish people had become very powerful and successful in Europe, in business, science, medicine, and banking. Jewish people became the richest and most powerful group in Europe, so their support was important to the British. For 1800 years, Jewish people hadn't had their own country. Some started thinking about Zionism, the idea that Jewish people should have their own country. They chose Palestine and tried everything to get it. They even tried to make a deal with the Ottoman ruler, Sultan Abdulhamid, but he refused. The Jewish people realized they had to end the Ottoman Empire to create their own country. After World War I, when the Ottoman Empire ended and Palestine came under British control, Jewish people from all over the world started moving to Palestine. They bought land from Palestinian Muslims, paying double or triple the price because they had a lot of money. The British Empire supported a separate Jewish state with the Balfour Declaration, hoping to gain Jewish support and money during the World Wars. After World War II and Hitler's persecution of Jewish people, even more Jewish people came to Palestine. Conflicts started to grow. The UN decided to divide Palestine into 3 parts, one for Palestine, one for Israel, and Jerusalem, which would be controlled by the UN and open to all religions. The Arab countries didn't like this decision. The day after Israel became a country, they attacked. The armies of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria attacked Israel together, but embarrassingly, the Arab countries lost the war. They lost to a much smaller, brand new country. Because of this loss, Israel ended up with more land than the UN had planned, including half of Jerusalem. Israel wasn't alone in the war. They had support from around the world, including Russia and the United States. After winning, Israel forced 700,000 Arabs out of Palestine. 700,000. Because of this, there were soon more Jewish people and fewer Arabs in Palestine. Israel became very powerful after this victory, and even more Jewish people moved there. A strong Jewish government was established right in the middle of the Arab world. But 2 areas, the West Bank and Gaza, were still not controlled by Israel. About 60 years ago, in 1967, because of some misunderstandings, war broke out again. Egypt, Jordan, and Syria against tiny Israel. In just 6 days, Israel defeated all 3 countries and tripled its size. The Arab countries were badly defeated again. Imagine if a really strong fighter lost to someone much weaker twice. After losing to Israel twice, people in Arab countries turned against their nationalist leaders and started looking for new ideas. The Muslim Brotherhood was started by Hassan al-Banna, a teacher from Egypt and inspired by the ideas of Maulana Maududi from Pakistan. Before, Afghan Muslims were made fun of in the Arab world, but after these defeats, the Muslim Brotherhood told Arabs that they hadn't lost, but the nationalists, who were only Muslim in name, had lost. People started following the Muslim Brotherhood's ideas. Hamas is also inspired by the Muslim Brotherhood, but the Muslim Brotherhood is against violence. After winning the war, Israel took control of the West Bank, Gaza, and Jerusalem. To this day, no one has been able to take those areas back. If you found this journey through history insightful, Please subscribe, like, and share this video to support